Peace to the family. We are back. We are live. We are right. And we putting the flashlight on the scammers. This is your brother Reggie. Brother Reggie is giving the community the information that they need. This is a continuation of the last show that I was doing last night on foundational Black Americans are scamming the Black community. What they claim to want is illegal in the Constitution and law. So I'm gonna wait a few minutes for people to get in here. And like I said, the FBAs are scamming. What they claim to want is illegal already in the Constitution and law. It's illegal. In order for us to get reparations the way they want us to get, you're going to have to change the Constitution and case law. So there are two steps that are probably impossible. But Black family, there's another way. It's not the FBA way. It doesn't matter how many church meetings that they have where they put up a tent and then they tell the people, well, after the service, you're going to get something to eat, right? Those type of church rallies, that they're using that strategy. It doesn't matter how many tents that they put up and how much they preach. The way that they're asking for reparations, lineage-based, is illegal. The Constitution prohibits it, and so does state law, all other governmental and agency law. But because of our despair in this country, because of our poverty, because of our hate for sometimes ourselves, on a black-on-black crime, we follow rhetoric. Brothers and sisters, the rhetoric that they are following is similar to what happened in Hitler's Germany and Mussolini's Italy. Scapegoating people and have no plan for solving the real problems. Brothers and sisters, they have no plan for solving the problems. They think that you can get mass people saying the same thing and that solves the problem. No. Brothers and sisters, the FBAs are now attacking Black people. They're not only attacking Africans, immigrants, they're not only attacking Caribbean immigrants, they also attack Black folks in America, people that they or could be considered foundational Black Americans. They're attacking the exact people in government, city, state, and federal, who happen to be Black Americans, Black people. They're attacking them. But they're quiet when it comes to attacking the real oppressor. So brothers and sisters, I'm going to start off with reality, with current news that they're quiet about. And the reason why they're quiet about it is because they're actually in line with rewriting history. See, brothers and sisters, they're trying to redefine Black. Black used to be a thing of a concept of unity that we embraced. All of our major movements was inclusive in black. But this new movement is rewriting history, brothers and sisters, and they're separating out black people, scapegoating them. And how's it being done? It's done on social media. Same strategy that our oppressors have used to disunite us. FBAs are disuniting us, claiming that black people, foundational black people, whatever that word is a real thing, and others are not. And then those black Americans and black people who show by evidence that they're wrong, they're being targeted and called names, tethers, even though their definition of tether is someone else. Calling me an agent, people like myself an agent. Where is it in my history that I've ever worked for the interests of the oppressor? But when you look, brothers and sisters, at these people, they're pop-up paper dolls. You can't find them in the history of black folks fighting. You can't find them in organizations. But their Cash App pockets are full. You can't find them in any organizations because there is no organization for foundational black Americans. What they're doing, brothers and sisters, is reclassifying the black struggle. Anybody who they could talk about is an FBA, even though they never called themselves FBA. But they're FBAs. Now, brothers and sisters, look, we've had other organizations do this, but not like they are doing it. The Moorish Science Temple of America, they were inclusive, even though they renamed black people or renamed people and said they weren't black, but they were inclusive. The Black Hebrews, though I disagree with them historically, theologically, they claim the majority of black people in America. And they haven't even checked to find that the so-called Hamites or Africans are in their ranks, because they are. They make the mistake of using someone else's history with this Hamitic hypotheses to separate. Then you have the other groups, the Aboriginals. No information or evidence that the Aboriginal groups did anything for our people. No evidence at all that we heard this term before about 7, 8 years ago. But they relabel our people, but at least they use the word black for unity. But they're ahistorical too. But I'm not talking about these groups, brothers and sisters. I'm talking about the FBAs as scamming. So get ready in a few seconds, brothers and sisters, and I'm going to show you how on one side, these groups of people are scapegoating Africans and African Caribbeans, not really saying anything about the huge 65 million Latinos that are in this country. They do it cursory because they know they'd be chin checked and overrun and cry and want our help for what the hate that they did. But we have something else going on. The white conservatives, or European descent American conservatives. But they're very quiet on that because they are actually in line with them. So, brothers and sisters, I'm going to show you something that's going to have you really question them. And then I'm going to get back to law. So let me just check the chat to see who's in. Hey, Brother Smash Rockwell, man. Peace to you. Keep doing what you do. You're the best. That good guy, my good brother. Peace, and always checking on your brother Reggie. Hello, lovely. How are you? Peace to you. All right. So thanks for coming on this show today. And listen to Brother Reggie, who they're attacking as an agent. The last time I checked, I was a student of Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Joseph Benjo Cannon, Dr. Rickety Ahmed, Dr. Jacob Carruthers, Dr. Asa Hilliard, right? You can find me in the street doing things for black people, but I'm an agent. Yeah, I'm an agent against the FBAs. I'm an agent against you. But I'm an agent for black people, for unity, against scammers. Right? So before you holler at me, I want your best, yo. I want your college educated, yo. I want those, man, that got a history and a struggle in an organization, yo. I want those people. I don't want the ordinary FBAs. I want your best, yo. And I want to have you answer the question about, is the lineage-based BS legal in the Constitution? Let's start there. Then we're going to talk about some case laws. And we're going to find out that you're scamming. Because what you're asking people who are involved in reparations in the black movements is to follow a plan that's going to lead to a dead end. See, I don't hide my sources. I don't have to do any of that for you. I'll tell it to you directly in your face. And you know what? You won't respond. You just keep putting up your old church tents and preaching and gathering people for simply a meal at the end. But there's no meal coming for what you're doing. But you yourself are creating your own meal in Cash App and influence and things like that. T-shirts and hats and, right? Your FBA hat is like the MAGA hat. You're trying to make America great again. You're doing your part and you're scamming. So I don't want to talk about anything else really about law. I don't want to talk about that. The stuff that you're talking about, your lineage-based stuff, because it don't work in law, and I can prove it in like less than 10, 15 minutes. You're asking for lineage-based reparations, and you don't know about harm-based reparations. You don't know how to help our people ask for something that they can get in law. So let me turn down the music and let me start. I want to make an announcement that the content that I'm using is fair use. I'm going to try to put up the ticker to show. So give me a second to set this thing up if I can. Give me a second. But thanks for everybody for joining, because this is the show. I'm not going to get the 2,000 lives. I'm not going to get the preacher tent. I'm not going to get that. But I'm gonna give you some that you can send down their throats. Oh, and the last thing while I'm setting this thing up, let me tell you this. I've been on some of your shows to kind of talk, chit chat. Every time I go on a show, you don't want to hear what I have to say, so you block me. Okay, I got you, because you're scamming. You don't want to interact with me. Okay, that's your choice. I don't respect it, but I know what you're doing. But let me tell you something. You better curate your comments. Because, see, one thing is just to talk about me. The other thing is to put your hate speech in YouTube. Now, you better stop that hate Africans, hate Caribbeans, hate Black Democrats, hate. Because guess what? YouTube can only tolerate you for a while. See, what you're doing is what they did in Nazi Germany and Italy. You're scapegoating. And you're not giving the people a chance to respond. Well, guess what? There's a remedy for that. So I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be a patient. I'll give you about a month. In a month, you better go through your pages and take down that hate speech on Black people. You better do that. Because in a month or so, you're going to find strikes. Not just from Brother Reggie, but I'm giving everybody the formula to get you. You can't do that in Black America. So there's a remedy for you. So all your pages, all your views, all your cash apps, all your monetizations, the monetizations that you're getting from anyway, like everybody does from white media. I mean, white advertisers, right? Well, your bag is going to disappear, right? And then while we're doing that, we're going to remind you that almost all of you started out in the Black movement, but you took the bag. So let me start with this. Give me a second. Where is this? Okay, let's start here. All right. Now, while everybody is being distracted with taking out Africans and Caribbeans, right? And being real quiet about the lost Latino population, your man, the President of the United States, he is attacking not just lineage, he's attacking the story of Black people in America. He is saying that the federal institutions is focused too much on how bad slavery was. See, Trump and the conservatives know something that you don't know because you're not smart enough. That it's not the lineage that they're attacking, it's the harm. So if you reduce the record of harm, then we have no cause of action. So what Donald Trump did, your brother, your uncle, what he is doing now while you're attacking the field. Do you know how many Africans and African Caribbeans in the United States? It's irrelevant. Their numbers are irrelevant. So why are you attacking what? Altogether 5 million, 5.5 million peoples who are integrating with us? And if our 36 million, 35 million use those 4 millions, we would be up to 40 million people. Your math is fuzzy, but you want to detract our populations, make us weak, and then you want to distract. So let's deal with what Donald Trump has to say, or what the news is reporting. So where is my ticker? Where is going on? Trying to get this popping. Give me a second. I see it. I don't know why it's not active, but let me just try one more time while I'm doing this. I got everything. Overlays, I got everything. Had it before, but I don't see it. And I don't want to get a strike. So give me a second. So I tried my design, captions. Let's try this. I added it. Oh, let's try to show it. Okay, great. So let's listen. While you're attacking the small populations of Africans and Caribbeans, Donald Trump is helping you out. He got the alley-oop. Now he's going to attack the images in the government, diminish that. So all peoples who come to the government in the United States and go to our institutions don't see us, don't see slavery. So here you go. You scammers. Let's go to the beginning.
And Trump says he has instructed his lawyers to scour through America's museums to rid them of exhibits he considers woke, specifically citing exhibits on slavery. President Trump targeted the Smithsonian museums, saying they are, quote, out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Back in March, the president signed an executive order directing the Smithsonian Institution, which runs more than 20 museums in Washington and elsewhere, to, quote, celebrate American exceptionalism and remove divisive or partisan narratives. Last month, the Smithsonian removed references to Trump in an exhibit on presidential impeachments in the Museum of American History. Mentions of Trump's impeachments were later restored, although with changes. Now he's complaining about exhibits on slavery. Although during his first term, he visited the Museum of African American History and Culture, which tells the story of slavery and celebrates African American accomplishments, and he called it a, quote, truly great museum done with love. It's not clear whether President Trump actually has the authority to tell any museum, including the museums of the Smithsonian Institution, what to put on display. The American Alliance of Museums, which represents museums across the country, says that no president has the power to impose the kind of review that Trump says he is now ordering. The organization has warned that the president's actions represent a, quote, growing threat of censorship against museums in America. Mary?
Yeah, lots of questions about where this goes from here. John, thanks.
Interesting. Maybe I should play it again, but I don't have to because I'm going to play another clip.
We're on a mission to give 2 million people all around the world.
Okay, so let's go here. Okay.
She heals, especially.
Good evening. I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Last week on this show, a guest shocked the table by arguing in part that slavery in America can't just be blamed on one race, and that museums put too much focus on the role of white people who participated in that terrible institution. And now tonight, that same argument is being pushed by the President of the United States. Donald Trump says that one of the reasons for his crackdown on Smithsonian museums is, quote, everything discussed is how bad slavery was. What we try to do on this program is create a platform for discussion and debate that reflects the very real differences that exist in this country. It's what echo chambers in our society fail to do, frankly. But on this topic, it's important to say objectively, slavery was indeed bad. It was evil, the nation's original sin. And it is impossible to understand the true history of this country without fully grappling with slavery's impact. Simply because of their birthplace and the color of their skin, the bodies and spirits of Black men, women, and children were exploited for profit and power. They were forced onto ships, bound by shackles and collars that ripped off their skin. One older man described it as iron entering our souls. Some chose to jump into the waters infested with sharks rather than feel that iron. Now, once they arrived on this very soil, they were forced to work by way of the whip, despite being starved, sleep-deprived, threatened, tortured, physically and psychologically. They were auctioned off, humiliated, fearful, and separated from their families and their children. Black women and girls were raped and sexually assaulted. Many were brutally murdered and mutilated. Now, this endured for decades, centuries. And even in the places where slavery was not legal, institutions from our banks to universities were built on enslaved labor in both the North and in the South. And for many of the white Americans who did not personally own slaves, they benefited from a caste system that concentrated wealth and political power in their hands. So, when we acknowledge the existence of Black people who operated George Washington's Mount Vernon or the Black hands that built the White House, we are acknowledging the existence, the perseverance, and the contributions of the souls that white supremacy sought to erase. Those people built families, they developed a culture, they were the keepers of the faith, cultivators of community. And they are the ones who deserve credit for forcing America to rid itself of the stain of slavery. Now, all of this information, these stories are from the Smiths.
Now, the foundational Black Americans, they talk about lineage base. So they say that their lineage begins for those Black people in America who were enslaved. But they don't talk much about who those Black people were. So when does the lineage change from Africans to Black Americans, or more importantly, FBAs? When does the lineage change exactly? So at what point are they no longer descendants of Africa? At what point? Show me with data when they are no longer descendants of African people genetically. Culturally, maybe there's a date, but the date is even problematic for the FBAs because Black people were still being trafficked into the Americas, the Africans, uh, up until the end of the Civil War. And then, if you look real closely, continued for years down the Gulf and around the rivers of Mobile and Mississippi, the backwoods. Why? Because slavery was profitable. They needed labor. They needed labor for the new territories uh, make to deforest, right? For timber, right? And they needed hard labor, not white labor, but African labor. So when does the African lineage disappear, you fake FBAs? When does it disappear? Well, it really doesn't disappear. You know, in the Garvey movement, you know, one of the reasons why the Garvey movement was so successful in the South, because Garvey came to the North. Why was it successful in the South? Is because the children and the grandchildren of Africans who still knew their parents and their grandparents wanted to go back home. They didn't embrace being foundational Black Americans, as you claim. They wanted to go back home. So they embraced the go back to Africa movement. But you don't know that because you got a K through 12 education at best in public schools with no extra curriculum, right? Now, I might come back to this show, but I encourage other YouTubers, scholars, activists to alert the public that the FBAs are scamming because they're not saying nothing about Donald Trump's plan to rid the institutions, the libraries and the museums of anything with slavery. They're not saying anything about that. They're wasting their time on largely 5 million African, Caribbean, so-called immigrants. So let me play this again. Let me play this again for you. And then I'm gonna go back and begin to finish what I was talking about with law. Because you're not too bright at all.
And Trump says he has instructed his lawyers to scour through America's museums to rid them of exhibits he considers woke, specifically citing exhibits on slavery. President Trump targeted the Smithsonian museums, saying they are, quote, out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Back in March, the president signed an executive order directing the Smithsonian Institution, which runs more than 20 museums in Washington and elsewhere, to, quote, celebrate American exceptionalism and remove divisive or partisan narratives. Last month, the Smithsonian removed references to Trump in an exhibit on presidential impeachments in the Museum of American History. Mentions of Trump's impeachments were later restored, although with changes. Now he's complaining about exhibits on slavery, although during his first term, he visited the Museum of African American History and Culture, which tells the story of slavery and celebrates African American accomplishments, and he called it a, quote, truly great museum done with love. It's not clear whether President Trump actually has the authority to tell any museum, including the museums of the Smithsonian Institution, what to put on display. The American Alliance of Museums, which represents museums across the country, says that no president has the power to impose the kind of review that Trump says he is now ordering. The organization has warned that the president's actions represent a, quote, growing threat of censorship against museums in America. Mary?
Hey, lots of questions.
Okay. So whether or not this president has the authority to do it or not, he has an army, a conservative army, and he has the FBA army, right? So he runs social media because it's you that are separating FBAs, black people from black people, right? Creating a whole new historical revision of who's black and who's not black, or separating blacks. But you don't see that and you don't understand it because, you can't cite source. You haven't been in the research library. You haven't been in museums, right? You don't know the history of our people. You don't know the pain and suffering of our people. You don't even know the harm to your own families. You have no idea. You don't know how to articulate it. It's not a movement. It's lineage-based. Stop saying that. It sounds stupid, right? You're creating a certain type of lineage, right? And you're excluding the parents of those people that was human trafficked to Africa. You got no publications. You got no articles. You got no plan. You got no writing, but you pitch a church tent with the promise of feeding the people after they hear your rhetoric, right? So I'm going to put my foot on your neck because guess what? At the basis of what you're asking for is out of law. So let's start this part of the program. Thanks for everybody joining. And let me continue what I was doing last night. Give me a second to put it up. How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's fine. While I put my foot on their neck and let them know you continue that hate speech that you're doing on black people, right? Separating black people. Well, guess what? Your channels are going to disappear. You better curate that hate speech. Who you hate? I don't hate you. I just think that you catered through 12 in a bad school. So let's just do this. All right. So yesterday, just to summarize, I showed how they are anti-constitutional. What they're asking for can't be given because the Constitution prohibits. So I'll go through this real quick because I talked about it and I'm going to continue. The foundational Black Americans do not know law. You are illiterate in law. This is a critique of the foundational Black American lineage-based reparations under the Equal Protection Clause. Everybody read. Don't trust me. Just read what I say and go and check it. The Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. No state shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. This constitutional mandate requires that government action treat similarly situated individuals equally, and is explicitly bars the arbitrary, and you are arbitrary, use of classifications such as race or ancestry for the allocation or denial of benefits or burdens. You are arbitrary. You don't have anything written. You don't have a plan. You are arbitrarily using classification, a conclusion prohibited by the 12b6 motion to dismiss plausibility statute, case law, right? By using race and ancestry. You can't do that. Now, how the courts perceive this is in the last reparations case, the Pelman Farmer reparation case, Judge Posner, in his decision to dismiss the last reparations case, said to you, the injury to the plaintiff's ancestors is not an injury to the plaintiffs. The wrongs done to someone else, even an ancestor, are not actionable claims for the descendant in federal court unless a descendant can show concrete injury to himself as a result of the defendant's conduct. You don't know how to read law, you don't understand it, so let me just break it down to you. A harm to your ancestors is not a harm to you unless you could prove concrete, plausible evidence that you were harmed. So anybody who's smart knows that simply lineage should not be in the argument. What should be in the argument is concrete harm. Now, Judge Posner, normally a pretty liberal federal judge, right? Pretty liberal. But one thing he did is that he actually read from his understanding of the Constitution, and he became kind of sarcastic. And you know, his sarcasm wasn't really in a mean way, but it sounds mean. He was just trying to tell, if you're going to do it, you better do it the right way, right? So now he starts to, you know, I don't know if some of your grandparents use snuff, you know, tobacco snuff, and they have a spit can. Well, he began to sniff, and then he began to spit. He said more. Judge Posner wrote extensively on the issues of ancestry and lineage, you silly FBAs, in the context of reparations. Here are the expanding the most relevant portions of his opinions in regarding African American slave descendants litigation, the case number 471 F3D 754 7th Circuit, right, basically in Illinois. All that to one side. He just dismissed anything about lineage-based reparations. There's a fatal disconnect between the victims and the plaintiffs. When a person is wrong and he can seek redress, and if he wins, his descendants may benefit. But the wrong to the ancestor is not a wrong to the descendants. For if it were, then problems of proof to one side, statutes of limitations would be toothless. A person whose ancestors have been wronged 1,000 years ago could sue on the ground that he was continuing wrong, and he is one of the victims. Now that's where he spat. because this issue is not 1,000 years. This issue is roughly 150, 200 years. But he was being sarcastic. He's saying that if you are individually wrong, you can there's causes of action in law for you. But if you want to deal with a class action suit, right? If you well, he's going to later talk about class action suits, but he's basically saying that just a mere you claiming that your ancestor was wrong is not a wrong to you. So don't bring in any of that post-traumatic syndrome babble without evidence. I'm not saying we don't have post-traumatic um, slave syndrome. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if you can't prove it with evidence, right? You can't prove it with evidence, then it has no teeth. Then he, you know how you hog spit, but the causal change is too long and has too many weak links, like FBA people, for a court to be able to find that the defendant's conduct harmed the plaintiffs at all, let alone an amount that could be estimated without the wildest speculation. It is impossible to determine how much, if any less, slavery there would have been had the defendants not done business with slave owners, right? What effect a diminution of slavery would have had on bequests by ancestors of the class members. That's where he's talking about class action suit, and how much of the value of those bequests would have trickled down to the class members. So he's attacking here the causes of action that the plaintiffs and Pellman Farmer said about the relationship between business owners and slaves, and it's impossible to determine how much less, right, of slavery would have occurred, right, because they did not, let's say, plead sufficiently for that, right? Now, so he hog spits. So he warns you that class action suits, you're gonna have a burden of proving stuff. And then he snips again, you know. And again, if there was a legal wrong, it would not be a wrong to any living person unless they somehow they were somehow the authorized representatives to bring suits on behalf of their enslaved ancestors. With some exceptions to be noted, the plaintiffs are suing to redress harms to third parties, their ancestors, without being authorized to sue on behalf of their parties. So now he's bringing in other latches in law and other, which deals with. So you want to be the plaintiff for your ancestors, right? You the plaintiff, right? Do you have any authorization that you are the legal representative of the person that you are claiming to be harmed? Do you have any access to their estate? Right? Did the rest of your family agree that you were that you could be the plaintiff? Now that happens today with land and accident injury, where someone jumps up and says that I'm the legal representation, and the courts say, you gotta contact all your family members, and they got to sign off on you. Some of you've been involved in personal injury and real estate and probate, right? Courts make you and your families decide on who the proper plaintiff is. But you don't know that, FBA people. You don't know that. You'll have no idea. Most of you, what are you, 36, 37 years old, right? You think you're grown. You haven't been through life, right? You don't know this. You don't know law. Then he goes, so you are I want to say B child, and if I say B child, the BA child, right? You know, the one that might have been born out of wedlock, you know, the one that never went to any family reunions, you know, the one that slung drugs, you know, them groups, you're gonna represent great granddaddy, great grandmama. You are, huh? Right? You just got out of prison, right? But you're gonna be the one, right? So he's warning us against problems that the courts will see on us. Now it says, suppose a class member could prove that he was a descendant from one of the slaves insured by Aetna or transported by the Union Pacific Railroad, another defendant, or bought with money lent to the buyer by the predecessor of the J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, still another defendant, and that these transactions were illegal, and that the descendants of the slaves are among the people whom the laws were intended to protect. He's like, suppose, I'm going to give you this. Had he not been insured or transported or bought with a bank loan, how would the financial welfare of his remote descendants, you, be affected? Would that ancestor have been freed or perhaps never enslaved in the first place? As the plaintiff stressed, slavery was profitable. Yeah, it was. It is conceivable that slaveholders would have been unable to insure, transport, and finance the purchase of slaves if northern companies had been excluded from the provision of the service or had refused to violate their state's laws that sought to keep them from providing their services. Here, Posner is helping us in harm-based, right? But he's telling you all the things that you have to prove, right? He's actually telling you all the things that you have to prove. You have to be the descendant that can prove these things. So that you better have the records to make it plausible. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're grafting on to someone else. So here Posner is spitting on the ignorant. And then he gives us a clue, a very important clue that he's not supposed to give us. So he kind of put this needle in a haystack, but a needle nevertheless something that we could use against the system. What he did say is, can anybody see what he did say? Can anybody find the needle in a haystack? Yes. What he said was that, interestingly, you could prove that states were acting illegally against their own laws. To be able to do that, you have to have some experience with law and understand when the judge is spitting on you, but he's really winking at you. Prove that the states that still own slaves in the counties and the towns and the cities, that they were acting illegally by violating the laws of the federal government. Then maybe there's a lesser burden on you. So that's why you wouldn't use somebody from the FBA, but you would use someone like me and some of the people that I talk with on these boards. You wouldn't use them. You would use someone like me is because 2001, I testified in the New York City town hall on reparations, one of the first in the countries. I testified for 7-8 minutes with Dr. Lennon Jeffries, Professor Small, Howard Dotson, a lot of state officials, and Deirdre Farmer Pellman herself. Right? I testified. Right? You would use me is because I testified about 8 months ago for the New York State Commission on Human Rights Laws for 3 minutes. And then I wrote a 25-page testimony on legal reparations. How do we get reparations legally? Some of your poster boys on the FBAs that, preach in these church meetings, they're sending you down a wrong way street. And the bad thing about it is, you know what the bad thing about it is? You're with them. Let's go attack the Africans and the Caribbean, as if that means something in law. Matter of fact, they're going to use that against you. Stupid. You're stupid. Your hate speech shows that we're not unified, right? And then you're asking to get something that you can't get illegally the way that you're asking. Now, there is no way to determine that a given Black American Day is worse off by a specific calculatable sum or monetized emotional harm as a result of the conduct of one or more of the defendants. Know if you're going to sue somebody, they're defendants. Who are you suing? Are you suing the United States? Are you suing a particular city? Right? Are you suing a corporation? Right? Or is you even connected to the ancestor that's claiming that? You better be, because that's why the reparations case was lost, because Pelman Farmer and the rest of them were talking about people in the third party that they weren't even related to. They gave no proof. If the descendant could sue the tortfeasor directly for that amount, or for the tortfeasor's profit in a suit for restitution, there would be either double recovery or an impossible task of allocating recovery because of descendants between the descendants and the states. Well, we don't have access to the states of great-great-granddaddy and great-great-grandma, right? And the fact of the matter is that because it's so blurry in the way that the courts, because you're American, right? Hand out justice. They don't want to hand out too much or too little. They want to hand it out to the right person. And if you don't plead with specificity, right, then it's going to get thrown out. Okay, now here he goes. But in any event, suits complaining about the injuries that occurred more than a century and a half ago have been barred for a long time by the applicable state statutes of limitations. So here he's telling you about state statutes of limitation. It is true that tolling doctrines can extend the time to sue well beyond the period of limitations, but not to a century and more beyond. With that, Judge Posner points to the burdens that plaintiffs will have when they wind up in federal court. Even if they don't think they're going to go into federal court, they probably will, because any reparations movement approved by city, state, town, county will find itself in federal court, right? You're going to have to deal with this. Now, not you, FBAs, because you never told the people that what you're asking for is already illegal. You are pleading wrong in law, and you don't have to listen to me. Go talk to some lawyers. But you're not going to talk to any lawyers, because you're a loose-based social media with social boosting group of people who are scamming. You're not going to talk to any lawyers at all. You're going to stay away from lawyers until you get pulled into court or the IRS comes to see you, right? And that's where any YouTuber, pay your taxes. But beyond that, you have scammed our people because you never told them that what you're asking for, lineage-based reparations, not reparations, but lineage-based reparations, is already illegal. Ancestry-based, just because an ancestor was enslaved. Now, you are too stupid. I'm not being nice to you, because I'm really not talking about the bulk of the people who join the FBA movement, because they don't, they trust the people who's talking to. I'm talking about your leaderships. because I know that they're scamming, right? The fact of the matter is, do you know how many white people could qualify for reparations because they had ancestors that were black? See, they can use that when they want to use it. So you know about the $5 Indian, right? Well, there will be tens of thousands of white folks who can point to one of their ancestors who was a black person enslaved, and therefore, and so therefore they could be a foundational Black American when they want to. But your leaders haven't thought about that. But we have case law that deals with $5 Indians, right? When casinos became big, and we know that all of a sudden the Indians looked white Americans. Why? Because they could qualify, because they could show in their census records that one of their great mamas, maybe not pappies, but mamas, was a foundational Black American. And so they're going to get the money that you want. Does anybody understand what I just said? Please let me know. Please let me know. So when my brother says, Daddy do 937, I have a grade 8 challenge. Name your 8 great grandparents. Guess what? Some of them will turn out that the daddy is white, but the mama's black, right? And that, or passing, or chose not to live as a black person, but chose to live as a white person, right? And that person will say that they are Black Americans. Anybody watching? Anybody understand? Let me know if you understand what I just said. Because this is what happens in court for people who don't know law. So let me just check my YouTube. I'm going to check my YouTube to see if I'm still on. I have no way unless I check YouTube. Unless somebody says, okay, I don't have too many people watching, so that's why. So my last comment was Harris Duncan. But that's okay, because when I finish with this, you will all know, right? Because I know that y'all don't want to hear this. But I'm going to give it to you nevertheless. So let's go further down. Now, ancestry can be construed in courts as a proxy for race. They will use as a substitution ancestry for race. Advocates of FBA lineage-based reparation structure benefits around specific ancestry. But courts have long recognized that classifications by lineage or descent are often proxies for race, and as such are typically treated no differently from explicit race-based classifications. Both approaches fall under the purview of strict scrutiny, the most rigorous form of judicial review, which requires governments to demonstrate a compelling interest in a remedy precisely tailored to serve the interests without overreach or arbitrary exclusion. For example, the Supreme Court's decision in Adirondack Constructors versus Pena affirmed that any governmental racial classification is subject to strict scrutiny regardless of its aims. Now, with you FBAs, because you are not in court, you will never be in court on this issue. Nobody will use your BS, right, in law, because you've already helped misdirect some states with this lineage-based stuff, and they have all lost, and it's cost millions and millions of dollars in legal fees that could have went to schools and cleaning up our streets and medical care, uh, 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 housing and food. You already messed that up. Okay, so let's see what I got. Somebody. Smithsonian is a white institution who purchases African exhibits. You can't tell them what to do with their purchases. The President POTUS, the President of the United States, is already telling his people to clean up the museums. So you can't tell them to do with the purchase, but they could shelve it, right? They could shelf it. They could take it off of displays. They could put new images of black people enjoying slavery, happy on the farm, happy sharecropping. Uh, they could do that, so they can rearrange. So I got you, but the fact of the matter is, what institution? The only institution that can block this is the Supreme Court and some state Supreme Courts, right? But President Trump has already showed his power by bringing the military into Washington, D.C., and it wasn't stopped. So let's get back to ancestry construed in courts as a proxy for race. So that means courts will convert any ancestry arguments on a as to be race, right? And that will immediately contradict the equal the Constitution clause, right? The equal protection clause, because now you're offering, because you've done that, you've saying that one race should be good benefits over another race. And all you FBAs are trying to do is just slice up the illegal pie and saying only foundational Black Americans who may or may not qualify. Did you do the great eight grandparent challenge, great grandparent challenge? Do you know all of your eight? Do you know your 16? Right? No. You know your great great grandma, Miss Susie, Miss Paula, right? Or they call her Chica, or they call her Injun, right? You don't know their real names. Why? Because you dummies never did any ancestry research. I'm not talking about the few smart ones that might. I'm saying generally the people who just kind of tag along with this and run their mouths on social media. You don't know your kin folks, right? And even if you know your some of your kin folks, sometimes we don't really know because people are born out of wedlock, people are raised by different families. We don't know all of that ties us down. But the game that you're playing is a game that we will lose. It's predictable failure. Why? Because the Constitution already bars it. Why? Because the in the case of regarding African American descendants reparations case, Posner already wrote case law. Why? Because of Adirondack constructors versus Pena. So I'm going to talk about this, and then I'm going to end the show, and then I'll pick up at another time, right? Because I have another show on this that continues, but I want to read this into it. Now the Supreme Court got involved. In 1995, right? You don't know that the Supreme Court, based on another court case earlier, right, made a ruling on racial classifications. The Supreme Court ruled that all racial classifications imposed by the federal government, such as must be subject to strict scrutiny. Strict scrutiny is a thing that causes millions in litigation, right? Because if it falls into context of strict scrutiny, then it allows the judges, the appeal courts, to look very detailed into your pleadings. The most rigorous form of judicial review, very expensive. This means such classifications are only constitutional if they serve a compelling government interest and are narrowly tailored to achieve that interest. The case involved a federal program offering financial incentives to contractors who hired subcontractors considered socially and economically disadvantaged, a status presumed for certain minorities. So that here they didn't directly say it, but the way the strict scrutiny found out that it was presumed for certain racial minorities. Adirondack Contractors, a subcontractor who lost out on a contract despite being the lowest bidder because of these incentives, challenged the programs as unconstitutional. So this contractor challenged, right, the program. He being the lowest bidder and he was knocked out. The court sided with Adirondack, overruling early practices applying a more lenient review at the federal level. So this guy, this contractor, he didn't get his money. He was the lowest bidder, right? And the people who got the contract were contractors that included this hidden, how can I say, Trojan horse minorities. Summary of City of Richmond versus J.A. Croson that happened earlier. The case dealt with Richmond, Virginia, ordinance requiring at least 30% of city contractors' contract values be awarded to minority business enterprises. J. Croson Company, a contractor, lost business as a result and challenged this ordinance. The Supreme Court found that the set-aside was unconstitutional because it was not narrowly tailored and lacked concrete evidence of present or past discrimination of the city. They did not plead enough to survive strict scrutiny. The court held that all state and local government race-based affirmative action programs also must meet this standard of strict scrutiny. The decision emphasized that societal discrimination alone was not enough to justify such a racial set-aside. Case altering these decisions. Alderman versus Pena extended the strict scrutiny standards set in Croson, which originally applied to states and localities, to the federal government as well. Since Adirondack, no Supreme Court decision has overruled or fundamentally altered this requirement. All race-based affirmative programs by government actors, whether federal, state, or local, are still subject to strict scrutiny. While subsequent Supreme Court cases have continued to refine and apply strict scrutiny, notably in the area of education, such as Gutter versus Bollinger, and more recent decisions, the core strict scrutiny requirement from Croson and Adirondack remains the controlling doctrine. In summary, Croson established strict scrutiny for state and local programs. You silly, unread FBA leaders, right? You don't know that. Adirondack extended the requirements to all federal government programs. That would include reparations, for lineage-based whatever, right? No Supreme Court has reversed or substantially weakened this twin holding. Rather, later cases applied these standards in new settings. So with that said, there is another way to plead so that cities, states, government, towns, federal agencies can award reparations, but it has to be harm-based, not lineage-based, right? Your leaders, your FBA leaders are just not smart enough, right? They're just not smart enough to deal with harm rather than strictly lineage that will survive, that will not survive strict scrutiny. So, hey, listen, what can I say? I'm gonna leave it here for now. This is my continuation from last night. My Cash App, let me just find my Cash App. My Cash App is I think it's ACP. Gonna it's anyway. It's Cash App. You can find me at Cash App Reginald Mabry. Right, you can find me there. Uh, let's see. There's an HTTP or something, but if you have Cash App, you can find me at Reginald Mabry. I want to let you know that the FBA's leaders are using this as a way to scam our people into groups that they can influence, that there is no path for lineage-based reparations, but there is a path for harm-based reparations. I don't have to debate any of these people because they already failed to let you know that it's unconstitutional. There's case law against it, right? So I don't have to enter into any silly debate with K through 12 people, right, who don't know the law. I don't have to. But what I can do is feed to our public that this attack on Africans and African Caribbean immigrants is a non-issue, because if you add them all up, it's probably about only 6 million. So they wouldn't impact reparations to 35 million. It would be better of us, it would be better if we use that 6 million to bolster our 36 million with them to about 42 million to be unified against other people. It seems that you are helping uh, the oppressor, because you have not said anything about Donald Trump trying to erase our culture from museums, right? That you have attacked Black uh, elected officials that have been elected by the masses, that you are not electable, you're some street movement, and you're a hate group, right? Not every one of you are hate groups. Some of you are being led, but nevertheless, you're into a mob rule mentality. They can call me an agent. Look at my record. Anybody that's calling me an agent have a better record of of working on behalf of African people, Black Americans than me. I'm in your age group. So my elders are all 10, 20 years older than me, right? And, many of them are in their winters of their life, right? Now, I may not be the most articulate uh, person, and I can admit that, but my writing and my arguments are some of the best in these times, and I've been well prepared. And you are easy, FBAs. Or you're gonna cry, we're a lineage-based movement. We're not a okay, we're lineage-based. What the F does that mean? Right? What does that mean? And then, well, Pan African James is here. All right. So let's talk about pan blackness. If you don't like African, why don't we deal with pan blackness in America? Why don't we deal with that? Wouldn't it be more important for us to get a plan throughout all of Black America? But you're not with that because you want to separate. While we unify, you want to divide, right? You with them boys. You with them with the system. You want to disunify. So let's not use Pan-Africanism, right? We can use it, but let's not use it as a talking point when we deal with these fake scammers. Let's just deal with being pan-Black. You want to separate Black, well, we want to unite Black. And those people who we have several periods of our time where we saw ourselves as a larger component, and you fake lineage people, you forgot that you were Africans when we first got here. You're revisionist like the current president of the United States, right? So let's just deal with another way, Pan African James. Let's just talk about pan blackness to get to Africa. but they're scammers. You clown Umar, right? Umar's made some big mistakes, and everything that the Justice Department or anything or anybody wants to give to Umar for finding out where black people's money went, I'm with that. But I'm not separating black people because of Umar. I'm just saying that black Umar needs to give up that bag back to the people he harmed. But that's not all Pan Africanists. That's just Umar. That's just Umar. That's not all of us. So you picking and choosing somebody from the Caribbean and somebody from Africa to talk about what they feel about black Americans is a nothing burger. Is a nothing burger. What you're doing is picking and choosing individuals. That's like people picking and choosing the European going to a block where the winos are and putting a mic in front of them. You think that is real arguments that you have? But you haven't said the little bit amount. What is the population of black of African immigrants and or Caribbean immigrants? Why are you acting like is there more than what they are? But at the same time, you ain't saying S about the large Latino population, because Big Hefe, if Big Hefe think that you messing his program up and missing his people and calling ICE, because you are calling ICE on black people, you're dry snitching. You're a snitch. You FBAs are snitches on Africans. And your family, they snitches. I'm going to do a whole show on that. You snitching. And snitch on the Latinos, but snitch on, say it for what it is. Because the Big Hefe think that if you're going to snitch on your own family, Big Hefe ain't going to like that. And Big Hefe going to do two things. One is Big Hefe is just going to wait, watch, and sometimes the way they do is your whole generation disappears. That means your lineage. That means you, your children, your mama and daddy. They just disappear. That's how Big Hefe do it. Sicario, they come in there and leave you all gasping for air and aspirin. Still. But they're not going to do that. You know what Big Hefe going to do? They're going to go to, yo, Moreno, my brother. Hey, yo, they messing up my business. They're making it loud, yo. Right? They don't think that they going to come and get you. And you know what the brother on the street going to say who's in the drug deal and who's still selling that poison and running game? He going to say, I got you, Bobby. Hey, Bobby, I got you, no problem. And you know what he going to do? Your own people going to bloody you up. Why? Because you fulfilling a government policy against peoples. Oh, you think I'm playing? Nah, I'm not playing. You don't think that happens? Yeah, that happens. I'm gonna do a whole show. I'm gonna tell you about when it gets loud, right? And then the street gangs say, yo, you snitching on your own and you snitching on me, right? There's gonna be collateral damage in our streets, you suckers. You can't protect the people that you're gonna cause harm to. Hey, yo, what about our prisons? Oh man, I got so much energy, man, on this, man. Yo, the Latino population prison, the gangs, man. Yo, they're gonna be like, yo, Bobby, to the brothers. Yo, people, man. Yo, your people snitching, yo. You a snitch? No, we not snitch. We ain't with that. He says, yo, but, yo, you don't like us, man? You don't think you snitching on us, getting us deported? No, we ain't doing that, Poppy. That's some FBAs. He says, I can't tell, Poppy. I can't tell. that you not with it. I think that you with that. Nah, Poppy, we ain't with it. We just trying to take care of our own in these prisons, man. He says, yeah, but you know, Bob, let me tell you something. Our numbers is growing. You reducing, right? Yo, we don't like that, Poppy. We don't like the way you feel about us. Yo, these Latino gangs in prisons in the southwest, right? You know, is overrunning us. And the trouble that some of our people behind bars is gonna get from your rhetoric says, yo, you know, Bobby, you know why I'm here, man? Is because of your FBA people, man. You know, they got big mouths, man. And yo, they came to my family. They got my wife, Nick. They got my wife, man. Because of this FBA stuff. That's you, Bobby? No, that's not me. That's the FBA stuff. Yo, but you know, we all here now, Bobby. I don't like that because my wifey, yo, she gonna get deported because of your people big mouths. They working for the government, but they are. FBAs are working for the government. They got a bad plan that leads us nowhere. Now they causing problems in the street, right? So they want the African Americans and the Haitians to go to war, right? Because one thing I tell you, man, our Haitian brothers and sisters, man, they the first that did it, man. They did it well, man. They started our freedom movement, man, with the Haitian Revolution, man. They did that. So now you spitting on them, you funky FBAs. You spitting on the people that started our freedom movement, right? Had success, took the whole island, and you yapping on them. Yo, but I tell you one thing, my Haitian brothers and sisters, when they get the word that you've been dry snitching on them, you know, you causing problems to yourself. They just haven't realized it because they don't want to deal with Black Americans who they live with, who they cool with. But you trying to cause collateral damage in our street. And what about the street gangs, yo? The Black street gangs, you know, Gangster Disciples, Bloods and Crips, and right, all of them. Yo, well, you know, they do a little underworld stuff. They do a lot of underworld stuff, man. Who you think they get the yayo from? The Betico. Where you think they get it from when they want to do that? Where you think they get it from? They get it from Big Hefe. So then Big Hefe will say, nah, I don't like you people, man. You dry snitching, you snitch, your people snitching, man. I'm gonna increase the value of the thing. Right? So that's all right. Because the street games is gonna be like, yo, you making the block hot, yo. You making the block hot. I'm gonna do a whole video on that, right? You know, I'm listen, man. Those years are way long for me right now, right? Man, I was able to go to college because the street let me go to college. But when I was in the street, I got a good name in the street. And let me just tell you something. I know the sentiments in the street, right? I came out of Castle Hill Projects. I know the sentiments in the streets. I know when friends kill friends, yo. I know when you sit on a bench and you know somebody's gonna die, you can't say nothing. You can't even give them an inkling or a warning, right? So I know how the streets work, but I do know that you making the block hot, yo, right? You think that you doing something? You doing too much, yo. Especially when you point the finger at other black people. And Big Hefe, he run these streets, yo. He the plug. He don't like that. He don't like it that Black Americans are snitching on Black Americans, separating themselves. So when the black guy, when the ICE starts targeting them because you're dry snitching, Bobby, you ain't gotta worry about Brother Reggie comments of being an agent that you called me. You ain't gotta worry about it. So be loud, show your face, yo. Show your real faces when you dry snitching. and you're doing the work of the oppressor. Show your face. And it's all right. Yo, I'm 60 years old, man. You know what? I got another 15, 20 years on this planet. I got another 15 years on 20 on the planet. Look, man, I'm like, yo, I've had people come after me and all of that and all of that. But I had real people come after me and all of that. Yo, you could be in your feelings and all of that and all that. Look, I've been through it all. But one thing I'm gonna do with my time, I'm gonna put my foot on you fake FBA's leadership. You know, the ones with the big mouths. Cause you dry snitching. Hey, yo, somebody in the chat say I'm wrong about them dry snitching. Somebody in the street, somebody on this chat say I am wrong about the FBA's dry snitching on people. Somebody say I'm wrong about it. They don't know what they're getting into. A snitch is a snitch. You working for the government. What you doing? Telling on Africans? You calling the FBI, ICE? Oh, you're not doing it, but you on you dry snitching. Dry snitch is the same thing. Somebody tell me that they ain't dry snitching. If you're gonna dry snitch on your own peoples, for what? Reparations ain't even on the table because you're messing it up. So with that said, hey look, yeah, that's my cash app. I'm telling y'all the truth. I'm telling y'all the truth. They dry snitches. They ain't gonna say nothing about Trump removing the harm slavery from the Smithsonian. They ain't gonna do that because you know they with that, right? You know, I mean, they went hard on Kamala. All right, I mean, that was they tied Kamala into everything that Biden was doing. I'm not gonna say that Kamala would have been a lesser than two evils, but you partner with the dude. You partner with the government, you FBAs. You did that because you thought that you was going to get something out of it. Well, he's taking away, what he's doing is he's taking away the image of slavery from the museums. So that anybody else comes to this country who are not black, when they go to these places, they see what they want to see, what's there, right? And it continues white supremacy, right? So let me just tell you something. You're a dry snake. You're the worst. I'm not talking about the people. You're being fooled. I'm talking about the ones that get on the chat and say they hate this and hate that, and the leaders that run that game. Answer that question. Is what you asking, is it even legal? Lineage-based reparations. With that, my name is Brother Reggie. I see y'all on these YouTube streets, right? I may not be the most charismatic. I might not be the most articulate, but I am one of the most studied, right? And you get on with a lawyer and argue with a lawyer, but you won't, right? So I see what you are. You snitches, dry snitchings, separating black people. You the worst. And what you doing it for? What you doing it for? Against 4 to 6 million African and Caribbean immigrants in the United States? You willing to do it for that? Because they're going to mess up your reparations that you can't even get? And yo, I mean, listen, I can't. I mean, I can only ask the people to look at my work, my research, right? And look at their plans. And maybe if you watch this show, you know that you shouldn't be effing with them people because they dry snitching on black people. This has been Brother Reggie. I want to say peace, and I want to say black power, right? I want to say black safety. I want to say reparations, now, right? I want to say shout out to our future generations that hopefully won't be fooled by these grifters. You FBAs, you scam artists. You like to post other scams to hide the fact that you's a scam artist and a dry snitch. Yo, see me on this law thing. That's what I want you to do. I want you to see me on this law thing. I don't want to hear about no lineage-based nothing that don't work. Show me in law that it works. Show the people. That's what I want. And I want you, the people. I want you, the people, to challenge on that. Ask them, yo, is it legally feasible? Because you're going to have to change the Constitution with your equal protection laws. You're going to have to change the case law. You're going to have to change all of the suits involving any reparation payments that have already been blocked. Yo, you're a scammer, yo. You're a scammer. So I might get only 200 views on this, but hopefully other people will deal with these scam artists and dry snitches. A snitch is a snitch is a snitch, and you're doing it to our people. Snitches, peace.